Have you ever worked for someone who scared you a little, but you still really wanted them to like you? Maybe your chest tightened when you saw their name pop up in your inbox, or a one-on-one with them ruined your entire week. And yet, if they gave you the slightest compliment, you lit up for days. That's not just having a tough boss. That's a specific kind of dark leadership dynamic where fear and craving for approval get woven together. And so today we're going to unpack that dynamic using two of the most terrifying leaders on television. Logan Roy of Succession and Homelander from The Boys. Very different worlds, right? One is an aging media mogul, and one is basically an evil Superman. But psychologically, they are shockingly similar. And I'm Jen, and on this channel, we talk about leadership and power through pop culture, TV, movies, daily life, travel, all of that fun stuff. So you can understand what you're living through at work and how not to repeat these patterns if you're the one in charge. And so in this episode, we're going to walk through how Logan and Homelander actually lead. We're going to name the dark psychological patterns that keep people loyal to leaders who scare them. And then we're going to talk about what you can do, both if you lead others and if you're stuck under someone like this. So let's start with their stories. If you haven't seen Succession, Logan Roy is the founder and patriarch of a global media and entertainment empire. He's wealthy, ruthless, and absolutely central to his family's sense of identity. And the core of Logan's leadership style is unpredictable dominance. In one scene, he'll be joking with his kids, almost tender for half a second, and then in the next, he'll cut them down with a single line, publicly humiliate them, and reverse a decision just to prove that he can. Watch any boardroom scene. Everyone is tracking his mood, not the actual strategy. And the question isn't what's best for the company, it's what will set Logan off. And that's the first sign that you're in a fear-based system. People are managing the leader's emotions more than they're managing the business. And then there's the way that he uses love and belonging as a weapon. He tells his children they're not serious people. He withholds basic praise and affection. But occasionally, and very occasionally, he gives them a tiny nod of approval or a hint that one of them might inherit the throne. And it's like watching a starving person get a single piece of bread. They come alive for it. And that's the emotional economy around Logan. He's the sun. If he smiles on you, then you exist. But if he turns away, you wither. And so even though he's cruel and terrifying, people end up staying. They fight for his attention. They compete to be the one who finally wins his respect. And Logan doesn't just run a company. What he does is he runs a psychological casino. You keep pulling the lever, hoping that this time he'll love you. Now, let's jump to The Boys and Homelander. On the surface, Homelander is the hero. He wears the flag, he gives speeches about justice, and he's marketed as the protector of the people. But everyone who actually works with him knows that he is extremely unstable and unimaginably dangerous. With Homelander, people live with a constant low-grade terror. Any small mistake or perceived disrespect could get them killed. And so they've seen what he does when he's angry. But just like Logan, he mixes that fear with the occasional praise, fake warmth, good job, buddy moments that really do feel like sunlight. And so you end up with this really awful equation. He's the biggest threat, but he is also the biggest source of protection, status, and income. The company around him profits from his image. So what they do is they spin his atrocities through PR. They cover up his worst moments. They feed the public a steady diet of, Homelander the hero. And internally, what you're seeing is these people explaining away his behavior, right? Like he's under a lot of pressure. They're doing emotional labor to keep him calm. They're staying silent about violence because their survival depends on his favor. And so with Homelander, you're not just dealing with a bad boss, you're dealing with a godlike child in an adult body whose emotional state everyone has to manage. So what do these two have in common? They are both deeply insecure. They use fear, humiliation, and unpredictability as leadership tools. The people around them become addicted to their approval and terrified of their anger. And they're both supported by systems, right? Family, boards, corporations that normalize their behavior. It's different settings, but the same core dynamic. People stay loyal to leaders who scare them. So let's talk about why. The first pattern here is the intermittent reward cycle. If someone's consistently awful, it's easier to say, they're toxic, I'm out. But Logan and Homelander aren't consistently awful. They mix cruelty with sudden generosity, big promises, and moments of real seeming connection. That maybe this time he'll pick me feeling. That's the same psychological hook behind gambling, the on-again, off-again relationships, certain forms of addiction. Your nervous system gets stuck in fear of punishment, a hope for a reward. In Logan's world, one good job from him can erase months of abuse in someone's mind. You see his kids light up at the slightest sign of approval. In Homelander's world, a single "I'm proud of you" from him can keep someone loyal long after they know he's dangerous. And so when you're in this kind of cycle, it feels less like a job and more like a compulsive game. I just try harder, I'll win love, safety, and status. The second pattern is that we unconsciously cast leaders into parent roles. Hierarchies really activate old wiring, right? There's someone above you who controls resources, approval, and consequences. And so emotionally, that can feel like a parent, whether or not we realize it. And so with Logan, this is quite literal. He is the father. His kids are desperate for the love that they never got. But even outside of family business, we see this dynamic. That CEO, that founder, that senior leader becomes dad or mom in people's internal stories. You know, if I just keep them happy, I'll be safe. Or if they're upset, I must have done something wrong. With Homelander, you still see it. People treat his moods like the weather in a childhood home. If he's in a good mood, we can relax. And if he's not, we're in danger. And when that parent projection is active, leaving a job doesn't just feel like changing employers. It feels like abandoning family or being abandoned all over again. And that is a huge reason why people stay in unhealthy environments. On some level, they're still trying to win the parent that they never had. Being close to Logan or Homelander means access to money, status, influence, a story that you get to tell about who you are. And in real life, that looks a lot like a big name company or brand, right? A famous founder, an elite team. The story becomes, yeah, it's bad, but look at the opportunity. If I leave, where else will I ever find something this big? And that's not just practical, it's identity. People like to tell themselves, if I can just survive this, I'll prove that I'm strong enough. If I can earn their approval, it means I'm truly special. And that's really where it gets dark, because now your entire sense of worth is tied to staying close to the very person who's hurting you. And finally, these leaders don't exist in a vacuum. They're held in place by systems. With Logan, the board depends on him for stock price and deals. Politicians need his media empire. Employees want the brand on their resume. The family is financially and psychologically entangled. With Homelander, the corporation needs his image. The public has been conditioned to worship him. And anyone who speaks out is either isolated or destroyed. So it's not just, why don't they stand up to him? It's they're standing inside an entire architecture of incentives and fears. And that's often what you're up against in real life too. We've got HR that protects high performers over victims. We've got boards that care more about quarterly numbers than culture. We've got industries that normalize certain abuses as just how it is. And so when you understand the system, not just the individual, it makes so much sense why people stay even when they know it's bad. All right, so let's start with you if you're in any kind of leadership role, whether that be officially or unofficially. You might be thinking, I'm not Logan Roy. I'm definitely not Homelander. Good. Let's keep it that way. But almost all of us have some capacity to slide into dark patterns when we're stressed, scared, or over-identified with our role. So a few questions to sit with. 1, do people fear your reactions more than they value your input? Think about your meetings and one-on-ones. Do people push back on you or do they shut down? Do you ever notice folks going quiet after you speak as if the conversation is over? Because if no one's challenging you, that's not a sign of your brilliance. It's often a sign that people don't feel safe. And number 2, do you use unpredictability as power? Do you ghost people for days and then drop intense feedback out of nowhere? Do you keep people on their toes because you believe it makes them perform better? From the outside, that unpredictability can feel like emotional whiplash. And over time, people stop bringing their best work and start just trying not to get hurt. And 3, what are you afraid will happen if you become more consistent and transparent? Are you worried that people will take advantage of you, that you'll lose authority, that you'll have to admit you don't always know? Those fears are normal, and they almost always point back to your own early experiences of authority, safety, and being respected. Healthy leadership doesn't mean you're never intense, never challenging, never firm, etc. It means people can predict how you're going to give feedback, what the boundaries are, that your anger won't turn into humiliation or cruelty. And so the question to keep asking yourself is, are people growing around me or shrinking? So now, if you're watching this because you recognize yourself in the followers, right? You've worked for someone who terrifies you, but you feel stuck. This part is for you. Number 1, you're going to name the pattern out loud. Instead of just, my boss is awful, or I'm so weak for staying, try, I'm in a fear reward cycle with someone who controls my sense of safety and worth at work. I've started to see them as a parent figure, and leaving feels like abandonment. I'm attached to the status and power of being close to them, even though it hurts. When you name it at that level, what you're doing is you're taking it out of the realm of character flaw, right? Like what's wrong with me? And you're putting that into the realm of pattern, right? The dynamic is powerful by design. And then you got to reality check your dependency. And so ask yourself, what do I believe I can only get here? Is it money, title, brand prestige, access? Is it objectively true that I can't get any of that anywhere else? Often once we write this down, we realize that the job is great on paper, but the real benefit is mostly just ego and story. Or, the money's good, but the health cost is enormous. You don't have to act on that insight immediately, but seeing it clearly is the first crack in the wall. And then you're going to build your exit options quietly, even if you're not ready to leave. That might look like updating your resume or portfolio, reaching out to people that you trust in your network, or taking one small step per week toward having choices. And so when you have even a tiny sense of alternative paths, that leader's power over you shrinks. You can say no more often. You can protect pieces of yourself, like your time, your energy, your dignity. And if leaving truly isn't possible right now, you can still set micro boundaries. You can shorten your responses. You can limit emotional disclosure. You can protect your inner life from becoming entirely about pleasing this person. You're not weak for getting pulled into a Logan or Homelander style dynamic. It's meant to pull you in. The important thing is that you don't stay there unconsciously. And so to pull this all together, Logan Roy and Homelander show us what happens when massive power sits on top of deep insecurity. They use fear, humiliation, and unpredictability as leadership tools. People follow them not because they're good leaders, but because of a potent mix of fear, intermittent rewards, parent projection, and systems that make leaving feel impossible. So if you're a leader, your work is to ask, am I creating safety and challenge, or fear and dependency? And if you're under a leader like this, your work is to name the pattern, reality check the story that you're telling about why you have to stay, and then quietly build options so that you can choose you again. And in the next episode, we're going to be changing archetypes. We're going to look at the martyr and the savior, right? The leaders who give everything for the mission and then slowly become controlling and resentful or even destructive while still seeing themselves as the hero. So think Daenerys Targaryen, Tony Stark, and yes, Michael Scott from The Office. So if this resonated with you, tell me in the comments, have you ever worked for a Logan or a Homelander? And what made it hard to speak up or walk away? And if you want to see more breakdowns of dark leadership through TV and movies, hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this series. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.